You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello again, everyone. You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense. I am your host, Doug Thorpe, and today we're going to dive into an area that I think most business owners worry about, and that is how to promote your business. How do you get out there? How do you spread the word? We can get technical and we can talk about distinctions between marketing and advertising and networking and promotion. And I don't know if you're like me, it's kind of, it all does bleed together. And when you're running your own show, the bottom line is you want to know how to be discoverable so that people at least can raise their hand, give you a call, and try to come in. Today, I've got a guest that is an expert in doing a lot of that, both for solopreneurs and thought leader, influencer type guys, but it also applies to those small businesses. His name is Vinnie Potestivo. Vinnie, welcome to the show, man.
Yo, Doug, how are you? But thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here with us. So give us a little background of this thing you do. Why don't you put a package on it and describe it if I left anything out or messed it up?
No, I really appreciate that. I was lucky to get my start in television in the late 90s. And I was lucky to continue producing and creating content in television for a long time. But to be honest, my strategy and my goal, I just wanted to be surrounded by talent. I ended up being a casting director because casting directors were surrounded by talent. And I was obsessed with this idea, maybe because when I was younger, my mom would say, stop hanging out with those 5 kids because you're going to get in trouble. You're the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with. And I really took that to heart. That was like a real fact for me. And I'm glad, to be really honest, that I did because chasing talent and being introduced to new media platforms has been like the highlight, not to say the highlight of my career, but like that's what I do, is find new ways to celebrate talent, find new ways to tap into talent, and to give talent, a person, a process, an entity, a brand, perhaps, the visibility that they need to get discovered. And I became obsessed with helping people get discovered. And the fact that celebrities are constantly seeking ways to get discovered. How do they get rediscovered? Why they win awards, why they do all these big campaigns, why they're constantly doing things that are finding new audiences, and the power of discoverability. And I realized that you don't need to increase visibility to increase discoverability. And I like that. I like that about 2022, where we're at right now. I come from TV. If you want more audience, you do more TV, more visibility, which, by the way, as a business owner, means everyone knows your stuff. Everyone knows who you're pitching to. They see the ads. They see the very public facing way to grow. And when I realized that the secret to discoverability wasn't visibility, but more so the action that comes after visibility, which is sharing. It's so annoying, by the way, that I'm going to talk about sharing and visibility and discoverability. I couldn't make it any easier. Like, celebrities are discovered because they're seen, and then people go buy their albums and share it. And maybe they buy the singles and they share it. So they can buy, they come up with singles and albums and different price points so that different people can share different levels of value. My mom thinks she discovered Michael Bublé. Because what Michael Bublé did right as a brand was associate himself with Christmas, did a big Christmas special where they said, why would people, how could we get multiple audiences around the singular young voice whose music doesn't look the way he looks and doesn't sound the way, there's this weird dichotomy to him.
Yeah.
And by introducing his talent around Christmas time, gave my mom the ability, one, to discover something right before it was time for the whole family to get together. So I want to point out discoverability first and foremost. We're mindful of our ego. I don't want to get discovered because of my ego. I'm afraid that my ego might be bigger than my talent. First, your ego is propelling your talent. So trust your ego to push your talent where your talent can get you into places where your character can't. And I realized that about talent, and I was obsessed with that. And it was that ability to meet people, because I didn't know a single person in television industry when I got, not a single person in my family. I didn't do the internship route. Nothing that I did should have worked out for me. But the fact that I went to a corner where I knew a casting director was going to be because there was a casting notice, and I went prepared. And I went prepared not just to show him who I was, but if he needed more help, I was prepared to give him access to a talent pool that I had created. And this idea of needing more visibility to get more discovered was irking to me, because it's exhausting. That's not sustainable. That's like saying you have to do more Broadway shows to be seen as an actor. Now, there's a certain amount of truth to that, because at a certain time, media wasn't in the theater. So like if you wanted to understand what was happening in that theater, because of how technology worked, only a couple of hundred people at a time could possibly get there. But now the power of media is different, right? Now we're realizing, and theater is real. I mean, all of these platforms are realizing the power of media. I think that's why dentists and lawyers and doctors have #1 top charting podcasts right now. It's not because they want to be seen as podcasters, but they have this podcasting tool, this ability, this understanding of a framework of conversation to play with that we as humans tend to understand. They have this framework of a way to have a conversation that they can step into and own it. That's the part that I get most excited about. I do come from a television background where in America, they buy your shows from you. You retain no part of ownership of that show. In other countries internationally, that's actually illegal, but I don't even need to get into the nuts and bolts of it all, but just know you sell your show, you get no part. And what we now can do as business owners creating content, that not only can we create the vehicle that our opinions are tied to, our likeness is tied to, but that we can use that to collaborate with other people, exponentially combining audiences to create a community. That's not something you can do on television before. And that's just the simple power of a podcast that has the ability to bring two audiences together. And my definition of community is literally when two or more audiences connect. So like if Beyonce has a tour and if Beyonce has a tour and you go see Beyonce, we're all in her audience. But when she's at Coachella at a big music festival and there's multiple artists there, that's the moment for community. That's where our audience strength is tested. And we as business owners, by the way, I learned how to be a business owner from Beyonce. It's a weird thing to say, but in 1998, when she was the 1/5 band member, and like you have to keep in mind these modern creators, these celebrities that we now know, they were modern creators in the 90s.
Right.
You had to go through television to get your stuff seen, so MTV was the place where a lot of these young talent would come to. But getting to learn from these people who've continued to not just create great stories, but spaces where communities have more power than the story itself. That's why I have to call myself a creator economist, because the power of our stories has changed our products. It's bigger than our brands, by the way. We think we have control over our brands. We have control over our branding. We have control over where we put the I and not the T, and if it's italic, and we have control over that. But when it comes to the perception of our brand, we have no control over that.
Right. So I want to kind of camp out for a minute on this idea of the difference between visibility and discoverability.
Yeah.
Because when you said that, my mind kind of went, burp. No, that's way foreign to what, again, modern marketing. And I know most of the business owners in the audience are probably sitting there going, I've been through a half dozen or dozen social media specialists to try to tell me, and they're talking about constant visibility. We got to buy more impressions. We have to, hit more pools. We got to be on Facebook. We got to be on Instagram. We got to do LinkedIn. We got to go here, there. And it's a ping pong tournament. I mean, everything's bouncing around and clicking off the walls. And Am I hearing you right? Am I,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So I think that one, with all due respect to social media manager, I think that the timing on social media has changed, unfortunately. So the value in earned and paid, the value for paid reach on Instagram and Facebook, for example, I'm seeing less and less a return on that. I'm not saying that this is something you absolutely, must guarantee do, but let me put it this way. Visibility. The difference between visibility and discoverability is, if a tree falls in the woods, doesn't make a noise, so if you're in, so you would say, well, then if I see it and if I'm in the woods and I see it fall, then obviously I'm the one that hears it. Okay. And then what happens? Then you have to go and share that story with everyone so that they understand the truth of what happened. And share is that universal piece. Without sharing what you saw from visibility, there would be no discovery of that. So visibility, let me say this, visibility, a three-prong approach to visibility. Publishing. So when we publish our podcasts, right, we're Podbean, Anchor, we understand that we're publishing them out and they're going on directories like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, Spotify. So publishing is one of the ways that we're distributing our content. Amplification is another way that we're putting our content out. Amplification is the promotion of our content. That happens on social media. So you're not necessarily consuming the podcast in its entirety, although you can. And depending on when this episode aired, who knows what networks, what social networks gonna give and take away from us podcasters the way that they've been doing it. But TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, there's been a lot of conversations about the ways that they're, and you can see in some, there's some conversations about the way that they're supporting the long form. It's not just about discoverability, but about consumption of podcasting. But most of social media is amplification. And I like to bring up aggregation. Aggregation is where curated content is collated. So we're culling through content. We're picking the best of the best, grouping them together, and then based on, for example, you might want a blog about podcast marketing. A blog aggregator will give you 10 blogs about podcast marketing. And here's the big win. If you're converting your podcast episodes into blog posts and your blog posts are being aggregated, meaning that people who are looking for your blog posts are able to find it because you're now discoverable on a platform where they're saying, I want to read a blog about podcast marketing. What I'm able to do for you is get you in front of a qualified eyeball who's looking for your content, not looking for your branding or your guest or all of the other necessary stuff that we spend a lot of time at the top of the funnel for in terms of visibility and discoverability and all of that fluff. Not to say, I don't want to discredit it. It's really important. But all that, it turns to fluff when the value proposition of someone who's using an aggregator says, I want a post about marketing, and that's when I sit down, I have 10 minutes, that's what I want to read. And one of the ways I'm helping bloggers and podcasters right now and bloggers is through these blog aggregators. So we've got more and more exponentially more and more media platforms and news sources and ways that people are utilizing and discovering podcasting. So one of the ways I'm helping people get discovered is by focusing on the content and not the context. I don't care how long the episode is or who's in it or all that other stuff that people need on social networks to build trust, to build like-mindedness, to show that it's consistent. What I'm doing is finding people who are leaned in and searching for value, and I'm giving them exactly what they're asking for, and nothing more than that. And what I allow them to do after consuming this piece of this blog is share it. And that's the best thing. So I'm talking about, there are many blog aggregators out there. I happen to like one called Q. If you want a free account and you want to know what it's like to like just log in and get 10 blogs that you asked for through AI, QUUU.co. So there's 3 letters. QUUU.co will take you to the place where you can start aggregating blogs yourself. But if you're looking to be put into the aggregation system, if you want your blogs to be discovered by those readers who are then sharing it on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Quora, the VPE.tv/QUUU, 3 U's, well, that will get you to the back end where you can then tell the system what your blog is about which allows the reader to discover it and then share it. And I'm finding that through blog aggregation, I'm able to do a couple of things. One, I'm training podcasters to get a little bit better at SEO. Like Googling podcasting is not so fun. I don't know how to say this. Because the results aren't there. Let's put it that way. One of the reasons why I'm exponentially asking people to take their podcast and get credit on IMDb. List your credit on IMDb. Get executive producer, host credit. It's intellectual property. Give your team credit. The guests that have appeared on your podcast also get connected. That's a data point that Google, Amazon, IMDb does not have yet. It might be sitting in your stream of podcasts. You might, if I go to your podcast page, I can then see manually, visually, I can see who your past guests are. But by telling IMDb that this group of people are associated with this one specific IP tells Google something exponential. And that changes your Google search results, your images results, your feed, your ranking. I'm now able to rank based on a tagline associated with my podcast. And to be honest, I think the reason why I'm having such luck, so to speak, with SEOifying podcasts is I think there's a lot more valuable. I think podcasts are a lot more valuable than we think. I think Google thinks podcasts are a lot more valuable than we think. I think Amazon thinks that podcasts are a lot more valuable than we think. Otherwise, they wouldn't let us enter in those data points. And when you type in my podcast name, which is I have a podcast, 4 very simple words that most of us have said. The reason I called it that because it was so relatable that I now rank with those keywords strictly because I entered my information into IMDb. It's a big data point to give the web, the web spiders that are crawling looking for our content. And again, it's about being more discoverable. It's about creating smaller pieces that are more identifiable, more shareable. For example, we might record this podcast. I could probably take a screenshot. I can probably take a screenshot of this and turn it into a GIF or maybe some type of fun action, get some type of GIF that moves and upload that to Tenor, which feeds LinkedIn and Twitter, and upload it to Giphy, which feeds Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and TikTok. And let people create using our energy and find a way to make that impact as opposed to strictly being discovered as a podcast.
Should I be wearing a hat? Do I need to get a
No, man, by the way, the glasses are enough. So you got in terms of branding, that's like exactly where maybe it would be right. And by the way, here's a funny thing to bring up, but like your glasses, there's a certain framing to your glasses. If I typed in Doug Thorpe into Giphy, for example, and I saw your token glasses, that becomes something that becomes instantly recognizable as you. And when other people have glasses, I think of, Bono, and think of literally like how one accessory can change someone's identity. And it's because they give us that power, of relatability and consumption. We're consuming it, we're sharing it, and it's part of our vernacular. So I think it's all part of that system.
So, I really appreciate the commentary for those who want to go down the path of creating a podcast, maybe writing a blog and all that. And I want to come back to the blog comment, but I'm thinking about the guy that or lady that has started a business. They've got some kind of boutique. Okay, I'll use an example. I met a young lady yesterday. I think she's going to be a client soon of mine for small business. She and a partner have just opened a holistic juice bar. Cold press juicing is a big deal, and I'm a huge fan of what she's doing. And we had a long talk about it. So, but classic entrepreneur story, had to go get brick and mortar. You got to have a storefront to do that. You can't really sell juice over the internet, certainly not the fresh squeezed cold press. But she's into all that. And I talked to her a little bit briefly about what has she done in media to spread the word and get things going. And she's just at the early stages of doing something like that. So would the things you're talking about fit for somebody like her?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I would say to her is instead of saying yes to every press opportunity or interview opportunity, inbound opportunity that comes into place, because soon that's going to start happening. Soon people are going to realize that she's in a position to want and need visibility and to be discovered. So she'll start getting calls because she has a story. As you say, she has a story to share, and she's probably identified it if she's already at the point where
she does. She has an amazing story to tell about it.
The first thing I would actually have her do is carve out 2 hours a week or maybe a month on her calendar where we're going to start doing interviews. What I don't recommend is people saying yes to every inbound request. What I do recommend is people looking at those inbound requests and finding ways to make them work for you. It's a collaborative opportunity. No one says just, and it's not a birthday invite. It's not like this is the only time that the party can happen. So first off, I like pointing out that your time matters because the dogs aren't barking, the babies aren't, the kids don't have to get picked up from school. I have daylight right now, so I have natural lighting. There are lots of reasons why I like to shoot at specific times of the day that make me the best version of me. So first off, if I can get some of those requests to fall at a time that works best for me, that builds a much more sustainable point of entry than saying yes to everybody. And the other reason why I like grouping interviews together, even if it's 2 together, is there's lighting involved, and if there isn't, there should be. There's cameras involved, and if there isn't, there should be. Microphone check needs to happen. Again, like I said, the rest of my life, the rest of my work needs to be taken care of because there's going to be things that pop up. I know there's going to be, emergencies that my clients need while I'm sitting in an interview talking about podcasting. But I know that I have a system built to be able to be here completely mindful of the moment. And
in the moment, yeah.
Now that you got me talking about clients, I started, my brain just started drifting for a second there, and I was like, no. This is my time to be laser sharp. So that's the first thing I would do is have her build the space to be a guest. I love being a guest on podcasting. I did not realize the power in being a guest on podcasting. The ability to trust podcasters, to collaborate with people in real time, not just brands and businesses, which I've been doing my entire life, but people. I'm fascinated with how people coordinate, manage. The way I love when how they produce or pre-produce, the show. Sometimes I hear in my head, I'm like, no, you don't got to tell me. I know this X, Y, Z. And they'll be like, well, our audience, we do this. And then I like that there's a unique pattern, a unique way that you've tapped into creating your content. More brands need to be aware of that we may be using the similar tools, we may be posting on similar platforms, but our creative process is completely different. I know that because I met with hundreds of production companies in TV. So I know now, if you sit down and ask any 10 of them how they're making money in content, they would all answer it very differently. So some are focused on licensing, some are original sales, some are focused on sales internationally, so they have rights to formats and then bringing them global. There's lots of different ways that these people they've realized that they can make money and in their own strength. And what I think I'm doing right now is first and foremost meeting as many podcasters as I can. I love people who identify as podcasters. It's a lot of self-work. This is not easy. Like I now realize why celebrities only do sit down conversations after one movie, because it's really hard to show up as your true authentic self and make impact if you haven't done the work. If you're so focused on the tactics and you're not focused on like what you truly are trying to, that's where guesting becomes really hard. For me, I think I'm loving it because I've done so much work, not just on myself, but on so many other people and their journey that inspired me. And I know that no 2 people create podcasts the same way no 2 people listen to podcasts. One ear out the other, the dog on one hand, going to the gym, cleaning, all the things we do, the distractions we put in front of us, listening to podcasts at 2x speed, all the things that we do to distract us.
I think that's a great point. You mentioned kind of doing the work to really define what your true self is. And that's something I find that I frequently have to do when I engage with a new business owner and they say, you know, Doug, we're kind of stuck at this level. I want to move to the next level. What do I need to do? And we start talking. And I like to always have a discussion early on is tell me about your business, not what it is you're doing right now, but what's your real vision? What's the purpose behind it? What was the driver? Why did you create it? Where do you want to take it? Where do you think you're going to go with it? And not everybody can answer that question.
Yeah.
They got an idea and they got really busy and they thought, well, I can make some money and I can have a freer lifestyle from having to work for the man, you know, but they haven't really taken it to that next level of focus. So my guess would be, I'm just projecting, if they were invited on that day to be on a podcast, they wouldn't have anything to bring. It was like, well, I do own this company and here's what we're trying to do. But that's the end of the story.
Yeah. And then that person ends up only giving answers to the questions that were asked instead of leading with the thought. You can ask me any question in the world, and if I want to talk about discoverability, I will make sure the answer lands on discoverability because that's my goal. My whole goal is out here. The last thing anyone wants from me is to hear my story. I think we love finding relations and being relatable to each other, but that's different than hearing my story. I'm happy to go into my story when the time is right and when I'm not. But it's also a dark place. You know, you don't get these superhero skills from everything working out in childhood. Let's put it that way. But I think that I love knowing that everyone listening to this podcast can absolutely relate to that, right? That we created super skills at some point earlier in our life. Do I have to go into all the nitty gritty of how? Yeah, sometimes I appreciate going in there when the timing is right, but I don't need to go there for the sake of entertainment. I feel like in podcasting, sometimes questions are asked for the sake of entertainment or filling a 45-minute window or you know, trying to meet the minimum requirement instead of trying to make the maximum impact. You know, they're more concerned about getting an episode out for the sake of getting advertising than making sure that the episode that goes out is the one that's going to impact the community and add vocabulary in a way that isn't. And that's what you were sort of saying earlier. When you sit down with a new company, you know, most of the time, and I agree, I've been in this situation that you have. Most of the times they know they want new words, but they also they are not capable of finding them. They do not know what they do not know, but they know that they don't know something. I was brought in to work with Peter Thomas Roth, a skincare company, which is not necessarily, doesn't identify as a creative company, but because now they have to put out so much social media and content that there's probably more creative people at that company than scientists that are actually doing the formula. And I'll never forget the first time I sat down in between, you know, this is normally how it happens. There I am in between advertising, ad sales, advertising, and marketing, and both departments pointing the finger at each other.
Right.
And I realized that the words that they're so stuck on KPIs that they're not, and they've got, and each of them has 5 different goals that this one piece of content is supposed to perform. And I come in with emotional words. You know, share isn't. I don't care how many shares. How many people look at this post and if this reminds them of an ex relationships that we've made a conscious decision of leaving, acknowledging, but leaving, that's an important device. And you'll notice this in a lot of stories, that it's important to let go of something. If it comes back, it's meant to be. If it doesn't come back, you know. So what are we doing to share, to tap into, it's so weird to say this, the ex-boyfriend factor, the ex-girlfriend factor? Why would you post, here's where I'm going, an accountant might say something, you know, have a post, and for whatever reason, it's something about it is about some type of relation. Maybe we can relate to it because we've been in a relationship. Maybe it's like our mom. Maybe it's an existing relationship. It's just something that we have in mind that's not tangible, that's not based on conversion, that's not based on our product, right? It's an energy, it's an emotion, and that's sometimes more important, especially up top, at the top of the funnel, when we're talking about discoverability and visibility, not necessarily conversions at the point there, but I'm happy up top to add words to that process so that it's stickier. It's a stickier process all the way down that funnel. The last thing I want to do is add words when I think you're about to convert, because that's just going to confuse you, and that's going to not help the situation.
Yeah.
I think personally. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Vinnie, right now we're kind of up on time here as far as where I like to normally put a commercial word in the show here, but I want to do something a little different. This is very impromptu. We kind of did it when we were teeing up to get started. You and I share an interesting story. We're part of a network called Podmatch, and we're talking a lot about podcasting, and you want to show your book. I'm going to show mine here. And the guys at Podmatch, the founder and his wife, Alex Sanfilippo, and his wife, Alicia, with the help of a guy named Mike Capuzzi, have put together these books. You see, one says Host Mastery, the other says Guest Mastery. What it is there's 16 stories in each book of people that are part of the Podmatch community. And we've come together and told our stories, either from the host perspective or the guest perspective. And we put this together so that if you're hearing a message like this and you're still scratching your head going, oh goodness, what would that take to get involved in podcasting? These are two awesome books that easy reads. It's not highly academic. It's sharp, it's smart, but it's not over the top academic or systemic. They're both available now on Amazon. Hop over there, grab the book. It's called Podmatch, Host Mastery or Guest Mastery. You can get either one of them, and you'll really get some great insights from people who have climbed the mountain, done the battle, and done the work and figured it out. And I am putting a plug in for Alex and what he's done with the podmatch.com network. It's a great community. We've got awesome connections we can make. I met Vinnie through the Podmatch platform. It's like an Uber dating service for Uber, not the car lift, but as in Uber Super, the original meaning of Uber. Over the top, great community of talent. I like your word, Vinnie. Talent that can come together, tell some great stories, and put on some great shows. So hop over there and check it out.
It's the power of people. I have to tell you, I did not understand the value in being a guest until I got to show up and specifically did it with this Podmatch community. There's something about the mentality of people who are in this community that are my people. I don't know. They ask the right, sometimes you get really, sometimes it's not your fault if you have bad answers. If the questions suck, to be honest, they're mindful questions. There's a real community, and where a lot of numbing conversations can be happening out there. I find that the people that are connected to Podmatch are business owners, first and foremost. So I like that. This is not just a creative community of people who just want a creative project out there. These are people who are creating creative projects so that it can sustain their businesses. And that's something that I get excited about, because that's why I did reality TV in the late 90s. It got a little weird afterward. I'm not going to point fingers anywhere, but I'm back, and I'm back with the creators behind podcasts, because I really truly believe, I always have believed in the power of SMB owners, the power of the solopreneur who can change the world. I've seen it. I've seen it with Jessica Simpson, Sharon Osbourne, Ashton. I've seen it with these people. And I know that we can do that too. And I hope that the way that I got to rub shoulders through the hallways of MTV, Podmatch is literally my MTV, and it feels like it's a magnet for the right type of podcaster for me to be connected to. And I really, in a day and age where this is all about trust in people, who you meet really matters, where you meet them really matters, what their goals, all that matters so much. And I'm finding a lot of like-mindedness in Podmatch.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's a great community. I've had some wonderful experiences, and we're coming up on show 100 for this year for me, and leadership powered by common sense. So it's it is receiving great reviews and feedback from people. I continue to ask folks to give us feedback and say, tell me if there's another topic you want to get into. And I know I'll find somebody on Podmatch that can knock it out of the park if we need to. So, all right, we'll try to get back to the show here. That was my very organic commercial plug in the middle of the show there. So there won't be any editing required on that little time slice. But I want to wrap up one thing, and then we are going to bring this whole thing to a close. If somebody, well, let me start with tell us a little more about your business specifically. If somebody is intrigued by some of what you've been sharing, how can they best get a hold of you? Is there any kind of preparatory work or survey or tools that they can dive into, or I just need to talk to you first?
To be really honest, no, I don't put any type of quiz or anything out there. I guess I could say maybe I should, but I gotta be honest, I haven't needed to. In 25 years, maybe I used to have casting forms, to be honest, but I'm a really strong judge of character. And I asked to have a relationship with people prior to when you need a decision made. So often I get brought in because a contract, an opportunity is on the table. Something's about to happen. You want to know what's the best way to lean into this opportunity. So I'm often brought in prior to that moment. I work one-on-one with a couple of people. I work really, really well with founder-led businesses. I'm really passionate about founder-led businesses, people who put their money where their mouth is, and they put their face where their audience is, and they put their voice where their mom can hear. Everything about a founder-led business is I so subscribe to. And it's not to say anything bad about gigantic brands. I certainly have worked with and will continue to work with them, mostly because of reach and power, to be honest. And until I can tap into the people behind that brand, and then me, I'm gonna get a version of those people out there as quickly as possible. And I do have a website, vpe.tv, where I have a free inner circle. So come in and get your 100 awards worthy of winning. 60 platforms that pay podcasters, 50 podcast platforms I think you should be on in the year 2023, just based on what I'm seeing in growth. And this is sort of an amalgamation in my way of rounding up all the information that I've collected from the 100 plus podcast guests that I've gotten to do, to be honest, as courtesy of Podmatch, who should be our sponsor for this episode, by the way.
Yeah, really.
And I have to say, I'm happy to pay the fees that I pay to be on Podmatch, and I don't get anything I get no special treatment. I think I pay $40-something a month to get access to 8 invitations to a podcaster per day. I don't know about you, but less than $50 a month for me to meet, what's 30 times 8, 240 people, potentially qualified podcasters. And I probably close about 100 of them a month and then secure them over the next few weeks. I can't tell you how valuable that is for me, the investment that it is for me. And again, I have a long-term investment and goal to be in podcasting. And I think that that's why I can lean into it. But I also know the power of media. I saw what unscripted programming did for brands that were millions of dollars that are now billions of dollars. And I've seen it, and I'm going to do it again. And this time, when I wave that magic wand around, maybe I might even do it for myself, because I didn't do it for myself the first time around in TV. I was terrified of what would come with fame, and I was not clear on my universal message. There was no clarity in what I was trying to do. And now that I think that I'm laser focused, now that I truly believe that I can help people become more discoverable, to get discovered consistently, and I'm doing the work to test it. That's the fun part now. Is like, I haven't just proved that I can do it. Now I'm testing it. Now I'm literally trying to undo all of my work. 25 years of work is now I realize why I love podcasting so much. Is like the challenge for me to undo what I've done. I can't. It's so cool. I never thought that it would be that crystal clear. How to help people get discovered without needing more visibility. Again, because that to me was exhausting. More talking, more looking, more presence, more energy. How about you telling me how to take that appearance and do more with it? Tell me how to take that appearance and turn it into a photo and a blog post and a carousel post. And you tell me how to turn it into a thread conversation on Twitter. And now I'm equipped to have that conversation. Those little tiny things are what make us a lot easier to be discovered, because those are the things people sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Vinnie, this has been great. I really appreciate you being on, and thank you for your energy and your excitement and motivation. And I'm sitting here looking at, I'll be real transparent. I'm looking at my calendar for the rest of the day, and I'm going, I wish I didn't have to do this. I want to dive in and do some of these other things that we've talked about here. But I say that facetiously because I've got two more great guests queued up, and Tuesday, this day is my recording day in the studio, so I've got a couple more shows to do. But thank you for being on and being a part of my community here, and really has been a pleasure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see why you were chosen and why you stepped up to write, Host Mastery. So thank you for creating the space where I can just, in some weird way, be unapologetically myself, but also like enable the inner version of me to inspire the energy out there. So I appreciate the nod to the energy. I know that with high dose, small doses, high vibes. That being said, get them, go out there and get them, get discovered. Don't let other people make these choices for you. Take control over your destiny. Take control over who and how and when you get discovered. You have a lot more say in it than you think you do.
Well, that reminds me of a teaching, and a lot of us coaches use it, and business advisors. And I don't remember even who said it first, but the idea is if you've got a business and you're trying to make your way, don't copy anybody. Just be your real self. The world only has one of you, and let us know who you are and what you want to do. The more you do to try to emulate or copy or replicate somebody, they might be wildly successful, and that's wonderful. You can share a few ideas, but don't let them replace who you really are. You can learn, you can leverage, you can experience, but don't let that change who you really are. Yeah. And I think that's my big message for today. And with that, we're going to bring it to a close. I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for listening in and being a part of the show. And I do want to remind you, if you're listening on an audio stream, we do have this show over on video on YouTube, a channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. We'd love to see you there. Leave us a comment, leave us a like, subscribe if you want. You'll get notices about upcoming episodes. But for now, we're going to sign off, say goodbye, and thank you very much.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.